I hope you're all doing wonderful today. My name is Nacola. If you're coming here for the first time, on this channel I speak on issues affecting humanity as well as I motivate and inspire to help you along your journey. Today's guest is Tamara Hylton, a mother, educator, a Christian, uh, a gospel recording artist, and she is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. All right, so today she's here with us to tell us her story, and she'll just go ahead and explain exclusively about her life and the things that she has been through, and we'll take it away. Tamara Hylton, where are you from?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Sharon, for having me here on your channel. It's indeed a pleasure. I'm so happy to be here today. Where am I from? I'm from Jamaica. My hometown is White Marl, Clarendon. I remember a few years ago, I met a gentleman and he asked me where I was from, very much the same question. And I told him where I was from, and he was like, I don't know where that is. And I said to him, I'm going to make sure that community goes on the map. And here I am sitting on the World Wide Web telling you about White Marl, Clarendon, Jamaica. So that's where I'm from.
That's a beautiful place.
It is a very beautiful place. Yes.
So you are no longer living in Clarendon, in White Marl. So tell us where you are now and how you got there.
All right, so currently I am living in the Turks and Caicos Islands, on the island of Grand Turk, the capital, to be exact. I have been there for the past 8 years. As Chamberlain mentioned, I am an educator, so I have been teaching and living in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and that's pretty much my home right now.
Okay, so Tamara, on this channel, I target issues affecting psychosocial issues affecting humanity.
Right.
I want you to tell our viewers, what you have been through as a mother, as an educator, and how you got to be a gospel recording artist. Guys, I have her CD here. She'll tell you all about it. Go ahead and tell the viewers about your story, a journey of grace.
All right, so for me, how I became all of that started with a dream as a little girl. As a child growing up, I had so much ambition as to what I wanted to be in life and who I wanted to become. And when you're from a very poor background and you see poverty around you, it's as though that is what you embrace. But for me, I saw that there was a better life. I was able to see beyond my experience then and the life that I had to say that this is not what I wanted for myself. So you're talking about a child growing up in a home with, it was an extended family, a blended family, that is, I had my father, who was an elderly man, and I'm like a fourth generation set of children. I'm a part of the fourth generation set of children for my daddy. And I had nieces and nephews around me who were pretty much of the same age. My daddy was a farmer, my mother was a higgler. So I'm used to picking the mangoes, picking the sweet sop and the sour sops and packing them. We had to cut the cane, well, not necessarily cut the cane, but when the men would cut the cane, we had to go into the cane field and bar the canes, put them into what we call bars.
Bars, like baskets?
So we'd pack the cane, right, in rows, what we call them barring the cane, right? And, then the truck would come and pick them up. And, I would see my mother going to the market. My brothers would be building the coal skills so that they could, and we would go, and when it's time to pack the bags with the coal, well, that's a charcoal, that is. We had to do all of those things. We had to go to the farm. We had to climb the trees and pick the load so that mom would have the load to take to the market for us. And even though I'm not discriminating against a life like that, for me as a child growing up, I didn't want to become a higgler.
Right.
I wanted to become something better. And so I envisioned my future. So growing up, I wanted to become an accountant. So going through high school, my vision was always to become an accountant. And I remember when I became an Adventist, I was talking to a brother from the church, and he said to me, becoming an accountant, you may be required to work on the Sabbath. And because of, well, for me, I was a staunch Adventist at that time, even though not all my family members were Adventists. I believed that, okay, I did not want to work on the Sabbath. So the next option for me was going into teaching, right? So that's how I become an educator,
Yes.
right? So as I said, it really just was a dream that was planted within me from a young age. I looked at my situation. I was able to evaluate my situation at that time, and I was like, all right, Tamara, there must be a better life.
So, do you think that there's something innately planted within you
Yes.
that you want to persevere? You want to become somebody great.
Something better, somebody great.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I did. I really just told myself that tomorrow, this is not the end for you. And as I said, growing up in an environment like that, it was, you see teenagers getting pregnant, you see young ladies going to school, they're just coming home, sitting down, having children, or they will do maybe first form and don't go back to school, or children will go up to grade 9 in school and they will not go back to school, and that was it for them. I remember before I go into high school.
Right.
So when I was in grade 3, so I was very smart, right? So when I was in grade 3, I was, and those grades before grade 3, I was coming first in my class. And at grade 3, my mother said to the grade 6 teacher, or the principal, I think she was the vice principal at the school, that I was failing.
What was the reason for that?
There were just issues at home and just family issues, right? I believe it was more family issues, right? And a lack of resources. That was a big challenge for me, because I can tell you this, family, I went through high school with borrowed books pretty much for most of the time, or books that were passed down to you, because as I said, I had 4 or 5 other siblings that was going to school at the time. And so at the end of the day, mommy couldn't afford everything for us. So we didn't have all the resources on hand. So I had to go to school with all the resources. There were days when I went to school with only bus fare, right? And so because of the lack of resources and the lack of parental support also, and I must say, when I did my master's, I did my dissertation or thesis on that topic, parental involvement and the impact it has on children's academic performance. And for me, that was also an issue, lack of parental involvement. There was nobody there to check the books, to ensure that you get the assignment done. I was pretty much left on my own, because mom was always at the market. Daddy was clearly the generational gap. He wasn't about helping us with any books and all of those things. Matter of fact, when I was in 3rd form, I remember my mother was gone to the market, and she told us to ask our daddy for lunch money. And when I went to him and asked him for lunch money, he said, I'm not giving you no lunch money. And I'm going to say it in a Jamaican dialect right now. He said, I'm not giving no lunch money for go to school, because all education I put on a man and pitney. And I remember at that time we had the line at the front of the yard, and we had a shop over on this side, and I stood by the line and I said, Daddy, I'm the only girl pitney where you have, but you're not going to live to see have one pitney. And so said, so done. He died the year before I got pregnant with my son, right? Wow. So he never lived to see me pregnant, and he never lived to see me have a child, right? And so as I said, those were just some of the contributing factors that impacted on me getting to 4th form, those crucial years when it was time for me to do my CXC. And my grades were failing.
So
right?
The family dynamics is that your mother was a worker.
Daddy was a worker too, because he was a farmer,
okay.
right? So he did all the farming,
okay,
right? So he ensured that mommy had the produce to take to the market,
okay,
right? So he was very much present, right? But based on when he was or where he was raised, or the time, the era, right, that he grew up in, education was not a big thing for them. It was all about going to the farm and, the slavery mentality,
Yes,
right? Because my
slavery.
daddy was born in what, 1919 people,
Wow.
right? So my daddy would be well over 100. Even though I repeated fifth form, I was able to work 1 year and entered college when I was 18 years old.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. So I entered college when I was 18 years old. So when I went to teachers college now, failure now was not a word in my vocabulary, because I told myself that I was never ever gonna feel like that again, right? So I went to college and I worked very hard. A year after finishing college and I started teaching in Portland, I went back, I did my first degree, and guess what? I graduated with first class honors.
Wow.
So you're talking about a child who failed in high school. Just the other day, I spoke to one of my students. She graduated last year. So she would have done the CXC. She would have gotten the results. Are we still in 2021? Yeah, last school year, right? And I saw her and I said, "How you didn't call me to tell me about your grades for CXC?" She said, "Miss, I felt so bad because I didn't pass all my subjects." And right there I had a conversation with her. I said, "Listen to me, honey. Your CXC grades do not determine your future."
That's right.
And a lot of people, and I want to speak to a young person right now, you may be struggling in high school, that will not determine your future. Because I struggled too. But look at me now. I was able to accomplish the degree, the master, and so on, even though I failed at that point in time.
So there's a phase, Tamara, that says your current, or it's a quote, your current situation is not your final destination.
Thank you very
And we
much.
have to keep
It
that
is
in
not.
mind.
It is not. It is not. Right? So,
The college, how you managed to.
how did I manage? Right? So when I was going into, I applied for college. I also applied for the student's loan.
Awesome.
And that's how I was able to get into college. So I used the student's loan for the first 2 years. And then when I was in third year, they came in with this program called the Jamaica Values and Attitude Program, JAMVAT. This is not a political post, I won't say that. But they came in with that program, and I did that program, and then I had a balance left when I was finished with college, and I worked that summer, right, at the school, cleaning windows to pay off my balance at the college. Wow. That I had left, even though I did Jamaica Values and Attitude Program. And throughout the summer, I remember National Youth Service, they would have summer programs for college students. I did that program for all the years that I was in college. Every summer, I did the National Youth Service program. So I was teaching in summer schools during the summer. CXC, they had a program too for college students to work as clericals, and I was a clerical for CXC for all those years that I was in college. So I was doing little odd things along the way, and there were people like family members and so on. My mother, like every Monday she would take food for me. So while I was in college and give me a little pocket money, right? So she may not have been able to pay the school fee, right, but she made sure that I had food and pocket money,
and
right?
That is very good. We want to give
yes.
a pause a little bit. We want to welcome those of our viewers who are watching at this moment. I have an exclusive interview here with my friend, yes, Tamara Hylton, who is a mother, a Christian, an educator, and a gospel recording artist. She is also an entrepreneur. Put your comments in the comment section, as this is going to be epic. She will be telling her story. And so right now we want to welcome everyone who is here watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you'll never miss another video.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Charmony. So yes, there were family members and friends who would give support along the way, because life is a journey. Right? And no man is an island, no man stands alone. So even though sometimes you feel alone, people are always there to give some assistance and to give some support along the way.
Right. So after you're finished college now, we're going somewhere here.
Mhm.
What was the journey like to find employment, and did you struggle with that?
All
How did
right.
you?
So when I finished college that summer, right, and at the time I had a friend, what we did, we took the Jamaica, the directory, telephone
Yes,
directory.
remember
Yes.
those yellow.
We took the telephone directory, and all the schools were listed in one section of the telephone directory.
Right.
And we sat down and we wrote application letters to pretty much, I would say, maybe all the schools in Jamaica.
Manually.
Yes. And I had to go to the post office and buy the stamp and send those letters off. I had to. I remember when I moved to Portland. When I moved to Portland, there's a Seventh Day Adventist school in Portland. I think it's Buff Bay. I think it's Buff Bay High. I met the principal, Martin Turgot,
Okay.
and I said, Mr. Turgot, I sent you a letter, an application letter. I mean, he became my very good friend, and I said, I sent you a letter because what I did also, I didn't only just send the applications to the school. I called those schools to get the names of the principals to put in the application letter, right? So I was just sending out applications left, right, and center. And I remember one Sunday, I bought the Sunday Gleaner and I saw an ad in the papers for Happy Grove High School, and I jumped on it. And I sent the application to the school. The Monday morning, the application was ready, and I sent it off. The Tuesday, I called the school, the secretary, Mrs. Crawford, and she's my very good friend, even up to this day. She said, no, we have the interview, Mr. Larston Lindsay, right? The then principal, God bless his soul, because he passed away some time ago. And when I was finished, this tall man, he's very big. He jumped up and he shook my hand and said, Miss Hylton, the job is yours.
Congratulations.
Just like that. He said, Miss Hylton, the job is yours.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that was my first, job as a teacher. And I took the job in Portland, and pretty much I was there for all my years of teaching until I moved to Turks and Caicos.
So what led you to Turks and Caicos?
All right, so what led me to Turks and Caicos? So I think we should talk about what happened before I went to Turks and Caicos, because...
Okay, so tell us about it. Tell us about
so
it.
in 2009,
Yeah.
oh wow, my journey, it's just so much. So in 2007, that was when I finished my first degree, right? So I'm fresh out of university. So even though I was working, right, I was doing a full-time course at the time, Chambly. So I'm fresh out of university. This girl graduated, quote unquote, with our first class honors. She's up on top of the world right now. Right? I remember at that time too, I entered the JCDC Festival Queen competition, right? In which I was placed second.
Wow.
That was 2007. So I was on top of the world. I pretty much felt like I have everything in place now. My life is going fine, right? I was singing, going from church to church. I was singing, kind of Miss Popular kind of thing.
Yes, you were.
Right?
And you entered some competition during that time too?
And I entered, no, I didn't enter the singing. I usually enter like the singing competitions and so on for JCDC. I was getting gold medals. I was going to the national finals. I remember one year, I think I had either 4 or 3 songs going into the national finals with gold medal, right, from the parish level. And, I was just really doing well. I was confident in myself. I felt like I was on top of the world. The only thing the world thought that was missing from my life was a husband.
Right.
I remember my pastor at the time, he gave me a branch Sabbath school to be the leader for. Right. So I was being trained now to be an elder in the church.
Awesome.
Right? I was AY leader. I was Federation president for the parish of Portland. I was, choir director. I was just so many things in the church. I was going to school. I was in public speaking. Just so many things was happening for me. I was just involved in community work, and I was just on top of the world, right? So I'm going to church now, and everybody thought, oh, wow, you're such a beautiful singer, you're such a beautiful young lady.
Yes.
You should
And
be
she can
the wife
really
of a
sing.
pastor.
Yes.
And all of, you're getting these things thrown at you,
Right.
and I remember.
So you had gotten married?
Not yet. Not
okay.
yet.
Okay.
Right? So I'm involved in all of these things, and people are now throwing things at you. Right? Because they're thinking, okay, with all of these things that's happening, you need somebody at your side.
Oh,
you need to be married.
Yes.
Right? So, people start matchmaking now, and the matching starts to take place, and you start saying, okay, I want to be with this one, so the matchmaking is taking place.
Right.
So I remember I met my ex-husband at the time. I met him when I just moved to Portland, right? And we were just friends. When he comes over he was in college at the time, and we were just friends, and we would go to church together, we'd hang out with other friends together, and we were just friends, right? And the next thing you know, we were getting married. So in 2009, we got married, right? And I kid you not, guys, that was, do I want to say it was the worst decision that I've made?
So can you tell me why would you say that? What transpired?
Because that was pretty much the worst part of my life, right? And the marriage didn't last long.
What was the
like
relationship?
The moment we got married, it turned upside down. The marriage became abusive, and I'm not talking about emotional abuse now, we're talking about physical abuse, right? I was traumatized. It was terrible, and I was so broken. I was hurt emotionally, I was hurting emotionally, I was hurting physically. It was terrible.
And
it was
as a spiritual person, you think there was some spiritual abuse as well?
And there was spiritual abuse.
But
I shared with you today that talking about this kind of situation before is something that would really just break me down, and I really just thank God for the strength and the healing that He has given me, that I'm able now to sit and talk about it, right? Because I don't think I've really spoken about it like this, right? But it was terrible. It was terrible. I don't think I can say some of the things here that happened, but it was awful. It was absolutely awesome, right? I was devastated.
And so you ended up a single mother,
and
the
single
trauma
mother as a result.
Yeah, the trauma and the abuse, physically and emotionally, that one has to go through. It is not very easy to overcome those scars, those wounds that you get. How did you overcome that segment of your life, Tamara?
How did I overcome that? It started with me going back to what I really love, and that's singing. So I remember when I had my son, so even though at the moment I was still married, and his father was still in the house, I was a single mom in the house.
Wow.
So I was going to church by myself with my son. I was living in Port Antonio, and I was working pretty much on the edge of Portland, and I was taking my son with me to work, right? Because he wouldn't take care of him, right? And till I eventually find somebody in that area to take care of him for me. So I remember one Sabbath afternoon, I was at the Port Antonio Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I heard my story, my song, my testimony. And that started just resonating, and it was resonating with me. And the Lord said to me, Tamara, you need to share your story. You need to use your testimony to help others, because there are so many people out there that's hurting and that's broken. And I looked in the church, and you see, when people love you, it doesn't matter what other people say or what other people try, because if your heart is clean and your hands are clean, The Bible says that even your enemies will become your footstool. And there were a group of young people at that church, at Fort Antonio Seventh-day Adventist Church. And man, they adored me. They loved, at that time they would call me Sister Rose. And they loved Sister Rose. And they would take Amiel as a baby, and they would, care for him while I was at the church. And there were like so many members, even at the church. And they would help to care for Amiel and make sure that I was okay. And I called the young people. I said, do you guys want for us to start singing, form a group and start singing? And they said, yes. And we started singing. And we started that group. I think the name of the group was My Song, My Testimony.
My song.
And we started singing. We were singing at church. We were meeting and we were singing. And that's where the healing started for me, through music. Right? So even though I was singing pretty much for as long as I can remember, that was where the healing started for me. So everything, my life, so even though I had, whatever challenges before that point in my life, it didn't have any impact on me. Okay. No effect.
So
it was
but
only
as a
that
first lady,
situation.
As a first lady, how did you manage to be the first lady? Because I'm aware, I have friends who are first ladies, right? And I'm aware of the magnanimous amount of work that you have to do. And I'm aware that as an educator, you have to attend to those children. And you go to church, and you said you had Sabbath school and
yes.
things like that.
So when I got married, I pretty much gave up on all of those.
Okay.
Right? So I gave up on all of those things once I got married. So I now become the shepherdess.
Okay.
So I wasn't singing as much.
Okay.
So even though singing was my passion, I wasn't singing as much. Right? I would still get an opportunity every now and again to sing or to speak in church, but not as much as I wanted to. I wasn't able to do it. Right? So as a first lady now, and you have your work responsibility. You were now hosting at home, hosting guests for lunch, and people were coming over. Sometimes people were staying there for extended period of time. If they were working in crusade, you had to make sure that these people were taken care of during that time. So you're talking about the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, and all of those. So you just have to do all of those things, right? So it was overwhelming, right? And it became frustrating sometimes because guess what? You were now left on your own to do most of these things, right? And it was overwhelming, right? It was cumbersome. You had to do all of those things. And at the time, too, Charmely, I was carrying 2 full-time jobs.
Wow.
I was carrying 2 full-time jobs at the time.
Did you not feel inundated by?
I was, right? And I think that also frustrated the relationship, right? Because you weren't getting any I wasn't getting any assistance per se from this individual. Right. So I was left to do everything pretty much.
And singing
was
the healing.
And singing was a healing for me. It was.
Okay.
It was a healing for me.
Okay. So what transpired after that? When did you decide to go to Turks and Caicos?
All right. So I don't think it was a decision that I made for myself. I believe God made that decision for me, because when I got the call for that job, life was better. I was by myself with my son at this time now. I had a radio program on Styles FM. I was, very active with the group, the ministry at the time. And, for me, things were going well at that time, pretty much. But I believe God realized that I needed a different space and time in which to heal. Right. And He provided that recluse for me, because if you know Turks and Caicos, it's very quiet, it's slow paced. You're not bombarded with the traffic
and all the beaches are there,
and
honey,
the hard
serene.
work and so on. And God realized that even though I was doing all of these things while I was in Jamaica, my healing wasn't yet fully realized. And He needed to take me away from that situation and put me in a different place, because there were too many memories of what had happened before, right? And you walk on the street and, people were talking. People had a lot of things to say. People, had their own opinions as to what happened in that situation, right? And so He took me away from there, right? So even though at that time I felt like everything supposedly was going well, God wanted to provide a different opportunity and a better opportunity for me too, right? So that I could have helped myself and helped my son also, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is so awesome. She did all of this as a single mother and educator. So, that is commendable, and I must say congratulations. Tamara went ahead and she did some recording. Yes. I want you to tell us about it. And this is her CD. And tell us all about it and tell the viewers where they can get your CD to purchase. This is my copy.
Remember that first concert?
Yes.
We sang it in Portland.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Not
Portland, St. Mary. St. Mary.
Oh,
yes.
with the Predis.
With the Predis,
right? Okay,
right?
yes.
Yes.
Very good.
And I usually buy CDs, my soundtracks. And I remember one of the times I bought a soundtrack and I saw a link to say that if you wanted the recordings, you can contact this number.
Right.
And it was a Daywind recording studio.
One of the best.
In Nashville, Tennessee. And I remember I sold my car, I think it was in 2018 summer, to go to Nashville. And I didn't make it.
Wow.
I didn't make
so
it.
Plans changed.
I didn't make it, Charmalee, right? And it was the April of 2019.
But what detoured you though? What detoured you?
It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen, right? I sold my car, so I was going to use that money to go do my recording, right. And it just didn't happen, right? So in April 2019, I just made that decision that, hey, I'm going to do it. And I called them, I told them I'm coming, and nobody knew I was going.
Wow.
Like, nobody knew.
I
kept it a secret.
And probably that's one of the best ways.
Nobody knew that I was going to do it. And I just went and I did it. Right?
Wow. Congratulations.
I didn't know, thanks, honey. I didn't know where I was going. Right? I didn't know these folks. But I went and I made the investment, made the sacrifice, and I went and did it.
How many songs?
There are 10 songs.
10 songs
on the album.
Wow.
And it was really for me to just use it to let people know that it doesn't matter what you have been through, God's grace is sufficient.
That's right.
And God's grace will keep you, because I know that if it weren't for God's grace, I would not be sitting here right now. Those nights when I cried myself to sleep, those days when I begged God and I said, God, why me? And, I became frustrated. I became, overwhelmed with everything that was happening in my life, the abuse, the rejection, the hurt, right? Being forsaken, right? Imagine that you have a child and you have to be raising and doing everything for this child on your own, your child too being rejected, not only by a parent, but by extended family members. And it was awful, being embarrassed on your job, being ridiculed, it was terrible. But God's grace and His mercy kept me. And I said, this is what I was going to use this album to share my story, my song, and to let you know that my life has been nothing but a journey of grace. So each of the songs, even though they're cover versions, they tell a story. And if you don't mind, Charm, I just want to tell you the story. The first song, No Longer Slaves to Fear. Yes, I was living in fear. I was ashamed. I didn't want to share
And remember, earlier on your page, we were saying that transparency creates healing.
I was too embarrassed to talk about it because you're talking about you being in a pastoral family and having experienced this, and you're talking about, you know,
Shame.
people looking down on
Yes.
you. I'm coming from a community where people didn't think that
You could be
I
anything.
couldn't be anything, and to go back into my home church and to be able to, it was embarrassing.
Yes.
It was.
It's like you feel like you have failed, right?
Yeah.
But no, that doesn't have anything to do with you. Remember,
Exactly.
we were talking about
Exactly.
it, what other people do to you.
Mm-hmm.
It will affect you if you allow it, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and it does affect you because these are the people that we are closest to,
Right.
and then they let us down, so we
Mhm.
feel
Mhm.
betrayed.
Yes.
You know, we feel betrayed, we feel like, you know, this is too early for a marriage to end.
Yes.
And so, you know, I guess it depends on if how active you are,
Mhm.
because you were popular
Right.
and everybody saw you as an icon then.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
they'll basically think that, oh, she failed, and you felt like, you
Yes.
know, this is it, right?
And you talk
This
about
is-
people having their own perception
right
true of you, and
yes, and they gossip.
yes.
Yes.
So when something like that happened, it was like, oh, we didn't expect that.
yes.
You know, that sort of thing. And
yes.
you know, and I have to say too, even after going through that situation, there were people who, you deserve it. It should have happened to you.
But you know what? I see you as a stronger person
Yes.
now. How did you overcome just thinking about what people thought of you? How did you overcome that challenge?
I
And
had to
you're
tell
in a better
myself
place now.
that I'm not a victim of people's opinion.
You're a victor.
I am a
Right.
victor.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to tell you too, guys, that you cannot become a victim of people's opinion. Right? People will talk because that's what they do. Right? But you have to know your worth, know who you are. And yes, you may be imperfect, but that doesn't mean that you are the worst. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve the best, right? It doesn't mean that you should be treated as nobody or anything, right? So I had to go back into myself, right? And tell myself that, Tamara, you don't deserve that. You didn't do anything to deserve that. It's not anything that you did. What happened to you? You were with somebody who made a decision to do that. And even if you were another person, and even if that person was with another person, it would have happened anyway. Because there's something that is in him. There's an experience that he had as a child that caused him to make that decision to do that.
That's right.
Right? So I had no to go into myself. And you talk about the positive self-talk. I had to go now and rebuild those self-esteem walls that were broken down. Because I told you all the things that I was doing before. So, you know, my self-confidence, my self-esteem was very high. But then when I got into that situation, it was totally eroded.
Broke you down.
It was broken down, right? I was down and out, right? I was literally dead. I remember I was at work one day and one of my colleagues said to me, the light from your eyes, I'm not seeing it. It's gone. And I had to now go back and find that light. My son, he became my sunshine after marrying. So even though I became a single mother, charmingly, he became my blessing. And when I was pregnant with him, George Gardner wrote a song for me. That's when I entered the original song gospel competition, right? So the song goes like this. You don't see my suffering, you don't see my pain. Seems that I am drowning. Na 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 na. You don't see my hunger, 'cause it's deep within. I can hold it any longer. I let it out and let it in. He gives me sunshine
what was the story after that? How are you promoting it? What
All right.
is your
So,
website?
So I'm on Facebook pretty much. That's my most active page right now.
In your name,
Yeah,
right?
Tamara Hylton.
Yes.
Right. So I have a personal page and I also have a fan page. You
Yes.
can follow the fan page and you can also, connect with me on the personal page. I also have an Instagram and YouTube too, right? But those are not very active, right? So you can get a copy of the CD. It will be shipped to you, and I have limited copies.
How
right?
can they get the copy?
So you make a payment through PayPal. So currently the CDs are going for $20 for the CD, and then you pay for the shipping and the handling. And if you're in the US, it's just an additional $5, which is $25, right? You can connect with me on my WhatsApp at 1649-245-7005, and I'll send you the PayPal link, and I will ship the CD to you pretty much, right?
Do you have any online download?
No, there are no online downloads at the moment, right? There's a site, N1M1. You will find the first song there, and you can listen to the entire song for free, right? But you have to get a copy of the CD, right, to hear the entire album.
Thank you so much, Tamara Hylton. You have heard it from her, how she overcame and came out of a life of struggle. And now she is on a journey of grace. That's her story and her song. What are your final words to the viewers today, Tamara? Please encourage someone. Give them your final thoughts.
All right, so as the song says, A Journey of Grace, the title of the album, guys, A Journey of Grace. Just know, as I said, that God's grace is sufficient to keep you. No matter what you're going through, don't give up. You see, each of us, we have that innate resiliency and tenacity. And if you dig deep within you, you will find it. Yes, life will throw you a curveball. You will have days when you're happy, days when you're sad, days when you're up, days when you're down. But no matter what, at the end of the day, you have to commit and you have to tell yourself that I am not giving up. Not only that, guys, whatever you do, make sure that you put God first. It is through Him that we move and have our being, right? If it weren't for God and His grace, I know that I would not be here today. So I just want for you to stay prayed up, stay encouraged, and just tell yourself that with God, all things are possible, and I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And no matter what, I am never ever gonna give up on life.
You have heard it from her, a powerful woman, an inspirational woman, Tamara Hylton. Please remember to share this live. Please subscribe if you like the videos. Share them if you may. Comment under the video if you have been in any situation like this. We would love to hear from you under the video. Remember to click the notification bell so you'll never miss another video. And thank you so much for watching Nacola's channel today. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.
Thank you so much for having me today.
You're most welcome.
All right, honey. Bye, everybody.
Bye.